My heart go boom boom when I'm looking at your body. I feel the goosebumps when I'm all over your body. You turn me up and I turn you on. Heaven is in marbles, picture perfect made for me. Wakana kangwana, unengero achisikana. Wakana kangwana, abana mume wandingade, ndiwewe kangwana. Unengero achisikana, wakana kangwana, abana mume wandingade, ndiwewe kangwana. I call you my flower cause you bring light to my heart. You are a special one that everyone would love to see. Your smile, it gives me more light. You are a special type. With you, I will travel from Bikini straight to Paris. Oh, my darling, I really do. Really love you from the bottom of my heart. I'm gonna love you till the end of time, yeah. And when we are older, we'll be dancing to these songs, yeah. Unengero achisikana, wakana kangwana, abana mume wanding.
Hi, my name is Charles Oj. I'm the CEO of HYBA, a Pan-African innovation enterprise focused on delivering impact in Africa. And I'm really excited to be here, and also really excited about my colleagues that are, joining hands with me to, on this journey. My colleagues in Lagos, Nigeria, in Kenya, in East Africa, in Johannesburg, and also in Cape Town, and even outside the continent in London and Paris and the Netherlands. I would love to, talk to us about our purpose here in HYBA, and we're really very excited about using innovation to scale positive impact that brings real and lasting change for the African ecosystem. And as we look at Africa and seeing so many opportunities, we do see lots of challenges. These challenges are difficult, they are intractable, and our intent is to say, how do we bring prosperity for all? And you may ask, how can we do this? We do this in three ways, which we call our innovation missions, around circular economy, inclusion, and also sustainable lives. Let me just take some time now and just talk about each of them. I mean, with the big theme around climate change, circular economy is something that we really push and drive here at HYBA. And it's really about accelerating Africa's transition towards adopting circular principles and actions which are relocalized, regenerative, and restorative by design. The next mission we look at is inclusion. And here we're really talking about not leaving anybody behind as Africa evolves into the development phase that it should be. And our mission here is to create opportunities that enable inclusive African societies for the benefit of many, especially women and youth. Sustainable life is really around improving the quality of life, whether it be education, whether it be health, whether it be helping for all Africans wherever they may be. In bringing these missions to life, HYBA is offering diverse but integrated services. These services are consolidated into three big buckets. The first one is we show up as a venture builder, where we work with scale-ups and small businesses to really scale their impact on the continent. Our second role or service is as an innovation partner. And here we work with larger organizations like multinationals, governments, academia, investors, or even development agencies to see how we can co-create solutions that can then be scaled up in the marketplace. Our third service is, looking at being a systems enabler where we solve, very complex and sophisticated problems in the market, whether it be unemployment or even poverty. How do we collectively bring our resources and capabilities and design using innovation and, if possible, ventures to really transmit solutions and impact for the continent. So we're really excited about our work at HYBER, and we're looking forward to partnering with you and talking with you as we transmit impact on the continent using innovation. Thank you.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, colleagues. Welcome to our special webinar hosted by UPTEC and HYBER. This webinar will be focused on fostering innovation through effective technology transfer. My name is Adrienne Lusa, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this insightful session today. Before we get into it, I want to extend a warm welcome to you all and thank you for joining us, making time, whether you're based in South Africa or in Europe. We appreciate the time you've taken to be here. And today we set to explore the dynamic world of technology transfer offices and officers who are a vital bridge between academia, academic research, and real-world applications. We have an amazing speaker, the accomplished Maria Oliveira from Portugal, whose expertise in nurturing innovation ecosystems is very well recognized. Her insights promise to make this a truly enriching experience. And just a brief introduction on Maria. Maria is the Executive Business Director of UPTEC and serves as the Program Director of the Master in Business Innovation at Porto Business School in Portugal, where she also teaches. With over 15 years of professional experience in technology transfer, entrepreneurship, and innovation management, Maria has held various leadership roles both in Portugal and internationally. Her career highlights include working in innovation consultancy, heading University of Porto Innovation, serving as an invited fellow at Boston University, and holding the position of Executive Director at UTEN within the UT Austin, Portugal program. Furthermore, she is regularly called upon as an external expert to evaluate proof of concept proposals for the European Commission and actively participates in conferences and seminars. She has an undergraduate degree in engineering from UTAD, an MSc in Innovation and Technological Entrepreneurship from University of Porto, an executive certificate in management and leadership from MIT Sloan School of Management, and an MBA from Porto Business School. This webinar is also about your voice. In addition to what Maria is going to be sharing with us, we hope to learn with you about your experiences. We encourage you to actively participate in the chat, ask questions, share your thoughts, and let's make this an engaging and collaborative session. without much ado, Maria, I will hand over to you and take it away. You're muted, Maria.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Nevelyn. It's a great pleasure to be here today and be able to share my experience with you. I'm sorry, but I need to do this via my mobile phone because it seems that I'm not able to connect with the PC, and this poses some technical issues in terms of the presentation. But let's see how we can do this, and if I'm able to share my presentation with you. Okay. Possibly I'm not able to do it on the mobile. I don't know what happened in terms of the PC, but it does block everything. Let me try to see if this... Otherwise, this will be a conversation, and I'll try to explain a little bit what we do in terms of the support to innovation in entrepreneurship. No, I don't think I'm able to share. Nevelyn, I'm not sure if you're able to have some technical support in terms of the meeting so that I can try to share the presentation, or if I can send it to you and you can share it via your PC.
Of course, you can send it to me and then I'll share it.
So I'm sorry for this, just a couple more minutes while I'm trying to... I will share it with you because it's a bit heavy. I will share it with you in PDF, okay?
Sure.
Already sent it, and right now what you're seeing is our webpage, the website, the entry point for UPTEC. Did you get it, Nevelyn?
Yes, I did, and I'll share it shortly.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm sorry for this.
Nabila, while you are setting that on, I just want to acknowledge the presence of everyone who has been able to join us. I saw there was a request to indicate your institutions. So while we're waiting, I'm not sure everyone has been able to do that with their names, but if you can drop the name of your institution in the chat, that will be really, really great, so we know where everyone is joining in from. And apologies for calling the institution UPTEC. So it's UPTEC.
Oh, it doesn't matter the way you pronounce it. It's a mixture between University of Porto and Technologies, which basically it's the main focus of our work.
Okay.
But then again, if you want me, even without the presentation, maybe I can start a little bit and offer some context. So you already presented a little bit of my background, and to my understanding, people that are attending this meeting have as well a background in terms of innovation, technology transfer, or at least a keen interest in knowing more about this. And the fact is that the University of Porto, in the last, I would say, 15 years, has been doing a lot of work in trying to implement new policies, new structures, new, I would say, programs that are able either to support innovation and research done at university, but mostly the connection with industry. And that's extremely important because, you know, whenever we talk about universities and the corporate world, it seems that we are talking about two different worlds that have a lot of problems in communicating. So this means that establishing technology transfer offices, establishing incubators and science and technology parks, basically it's kind of trying to do a little bit of tackling the issues in loss in translation. So having people that are able to understand both languages, the one that's done at university in terms of research, their objectives, their expectations, their timelines, and the other side, industry. So in that sense, I would say science and technology parks are kind of an amazing model, because really what we have there is something in between, which is the startups that are most of the times created by researchers coming from the university that themselves, they need to learn a little bit how to tackle these issues in translating research to the market, how they are going to learn a new language right now in order to put that technologies, their knowledge, for the benefit of society. And basically that's the role of UPTEC. I wanted to give you a little bit of context in terms of Portugal, and of course Porto, the city where we are located, just for you to have this idea, because I know it's extremely hard whenever we try to understand models that are being implemented and policies to put it in context, because we don't exist in a vacuum. And the fact is, when we look at Portugal, which is a small country, we're talking about roughly 10 million inhabitants, and a small country as well in terms of size. It's important to know that we are located in the second largest city in Portugal, but the area where we are, it's a very industrialized area. This means that we have most of the industry, the manufacturing industry, the backbone in terms of production and exports in Portugal surrounding the universities. And this played a huge role in terms of defining how the university was going to be created and which areas would the university be focusing most. And that's, of course, in terms of engineering, in our case, in terms of science. Well, there you go. Can you already see the presentation right now? So I'm giving you the context in terms of the Porto region, but it's better if we do it with some images, because at least you can see the city, and we do have a beautiful city, an historic city with the river and the sea and a lot of bridges. So what I was saying was that this defines the university that has a big focus in terms of engineering. Our engineering school is the largest, and it also defines the areas and the type of collaboration we do with industry. So most recently, Porto has also been in the spotlight as one of the fast-growing startup hubs in Europe. This means that we are not the main. So when we talk about London, Berlin, even Lisbon, those are largest in terms of dimension and in terms of number of startups. But we are the one that is growing the fastest. And if we move to the next slide, I wanted to give you this overview because I think it's important to understand that there's a lot of work to be done yet, because we only have been tackling these issues of entrepreneurship seriously in the last 10 years, not even 15 years. So technology transfer, we can say there's a track record of 15 years of work, but with entrepreneurship and talking about startups, it's quite recent. And I think that only in the last, I would say 5-6 years, did the Portuguese government start paying some attention to it with the creation of the Web Summit that right now is happening in Lisbon this week. So at this point, what happens is that the startups only account for 1% of the GDP in terms of the impact in the economy. But that being said, it also means that in terms of the numbers, we are being located or being noticed as one of the fastest growing hubs. And this means that we are in 10th place in the 100 emerging ecosystem ranking. And also the startups have been increasingly raising funds in terms of VC. And it's also important because, this works a little bit like an ecosystem. You have the startups, but then you're lacking the VC funds, or you're lacking the mature entrepreneurs that are able to run the startups and grow the startups. But if you start by the startup, you soon see that they will try to get money. If not in Portugal, they will go to the US or they will go to London, to a more mature ecosystem. And this means then the investors start being more interested in terms of what's happening in the Portuguese scene in terms of entrepreneurship and startups. And this is like a snowball, it starts growing. And then whenever you have a startup that fails, the entrepreneurs will try to do another one. And this creates a more mature ecosystem, but it does take time. So if you can go to the next slide, I just wanted to give you a brief overview in terms of how the startups, the unicorns. Can we move to the next one, please? Okay. In terms of how the startups and the unicorns represent in our economy. So what you see in here is the companies that are in the stock market and the companies that had been valuated as unicorns, so 1 billion. And what we have in the first place is more traditional companies like energy companies and like retail companies. But right there, you have OutSystems, TalkDesk, Farfetch. So this means that those companies are doing in 5, 6, some of them 8 years, what other companies, more traditional ones, took them 40, 50 years to get there. So it's exciting news. It's still only 7 unicorns in Portugal, but if we do unicorn per capita, we are positioning very high in terms of the European ecosystem. And the next slide, for you to have an understanding in terms of Portugal as a country. What happens here is when you look at Porto, so in the north of Portugal, we do account for the highest number of startups, even when comparing to Lisbon. And it is still, when we say startups per capita, it's 20% higher than the European average. So this is why, and if we move to the next slide, this is why University of Porto is working hard to implement policies and measures and programs to support entrepreneurships. I'm going to give you a bit of context about the university because we are the second largest university in Portugal, and we are a multidisciplinary university. I spoke about engineer, but we have 2 medical schools. We have science, which is also a large school within the university, fine arts, architecture, so all fields of knowledge. And this represents around 34,000 students. But it's also the most international university we have in Portugal. I would say roughly 15% of our students are coming from abroad. And in the next slide, you will see that University of Porto is also a research-intensive university. So we are the university that has the highest number of patents, particularly important in terms of US patents or European patents, international patents. And we account for almost 25% of all scientific production, and I'm talking about indexed papers, scientific production done in Portugal. And just recently, if we move to the next slide, we've been very happy to know that we've been awarded, and this is happening right now in the Web Summit, as the most entrepreneurial university in the country. So this means that within the study, what they do is they try to understand how many founders of startups are coming out from the universities. And when we are talking how many of those founders are able to raise money. So University of Porto right now is in the first place, which is We're very proud of that because it's very competitive in terms of the universities in Portugal. And this has led all of this momentum that's happening right now, but also that was part of the strategy of the university 15 years ago, has led to the creation of UPTEC, the Science and Technology Park of University of Porto. So if we move to the next slide, just wanted to show you the purpose for why we do exist. So it's really to do this economic valorization of knowledge, and to connect the university to represent the third mission of the university. You know, the first mission is education, of course. The second mission is research to generate knowledge. But then the third mission is to connect with society, is to benefit society in terms of what's done, and to impact society in terms of what's done within the university. And basically, in the next slide, you will see our mission, which is specifically to foster the development and the growth of entrepreneurial projects in all fields of knowledge, and to better connect the university with the market. So UPTEC is only a piece in the puzzle, because besides the science part, we do have a technology transfer office, which is called University of Porto Innovation. And for instance, all issues that have to do with intellectual property rights are within the mission of the Technology Transfer Office. So what they do mostly is to understand what's being done in terms of research at the university, to understand if it's economic value, if they can protect it, and if they can support the researchers in putting those results, those new products and services into the market. We specifically are working with startups. And when we're talking about startups, not only the ones coming from University of Porto, but any company, any startup that wants to be close to the University of Porto and wants to be located in the science park. So if we can move forward, because I think it's important, if we are thinking about designing structures similar to UPTEC, to understand a little bit what are our purpose, our values, and how we are organized. Can we move to the next slide? So our purpose, basically, we need to understand why we are doing this, what we want to defend. So this is kind of an exercise that I would advise everybody that wants to go ahead and setting up a science park or an incubator, even a technology transfer office, to do, not only with the management, the board of the university, but as well with the team. So really what we are doing is, in terms of community, we do host a large community at UPTEC of around 2,000 workers and almost 200 companies. So we want to engage this community and want this community to represent some sort of values, which is the inclusion, diversity, and the multidisciplinarity. It's also about innovation, because we do believe that innovation is the base of growth, regional growth, growth in terms of the economic potential of the country, but also because we only accept projects at UPTEC that have this base in terms of knowledge and innovation. It's about cooperation. We cannot do it alone. So we need to be able to understand when it's time for us to reach out and, in the case of startups, for instance, have a partner, have another founder to be on board. In the case of institutions such as UPTEC, to be involved in projects with other entities, to be able to share and to learn with others. And of course, it's about sustainability. Sustainability, it needs broader sense. Environmental sustainability, social responsibility, but of course, we need to be economically sustainable. So this is also for UPTEC, but because we want our companies, our startups, to be able to create a better world, which leads us to the next slide that has to do with the purpose of UPTEC. So basically, our purpose is really to support the development of better business or better startups so that we can create a better world. So we do not accept any project that we don't believe contributes in this, triple bottom helix in terms of the environment, the social responsibility, and the economic responsibility. So for you to have an idea, the next slide will give you a bit of an overview of how UPTEC is organized. So we are roughly almost 20 people working at UPTEC, so it's not a large structure. But it's divided in terms of business development, let's call it like that, in which most of the people are interacting with the startups, with our community, not only startups, because we also have large companies at the park, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. It's also the team that's responsible for our acceleration programs and for our collaborative projects. We do have a team that's dedicated to infrastructure and operations because we have to run all operations in the science park. So we are talking about buildings, and buildings have needs in terms of security, in terms of cleaning, in terms of heating, and all of that puts a lot of burden in terms of the team. Of course, we need to have our financial team in order for us to be economically sustainable. We need to invoice for our services, and we need to pay for everything that happens in terms of the park. And of course, quite important, it's our marketing and communication team, because it's through them that we are able to share what we do with the community and with the outside world. So the next slide will tell you how we are organized within the city of Porto, not only in the city of Porto, because we do have buildings in another city close by. So we call it hubs, three centers. Spread in the city of Porto, and the university also is spread in the city. It's a university with more than 100 years old, which means we don't have a campus in which all schools are together. We have different buildings spread in the city of Porto. So we adopt the same rationale whenever we developed UPTEC, that we wanted to be close to the university, so we wanted to spread around the city. So if we move further, I can show you our headquarters, which is where we have most of our companies located. It's in Esprella. It's the name of UPTEC Esprella, but it's also known to be a Porto Innovation District. And this means that within 1 square kilometer, you have roughly 50,000 people between students, professionals like teachers, researchers, medical doctors, because we are connected with the teaching hospital there and with the Cancer Institute, which also does a lot of research connected with cancer. So it's a lot of critical mass working in innovation in a very, very short space, which means that people tend to know each other. They tend to bump into each other. And this is very good for creativity and for collaborations. It's within UPTEC Esprella that we also have most of our labs. We don't have a biotech facility, but we do have labs for telecommunications, energy, and we have a product development lab that's mostly doing prototyping and supporting our companies to do 3D printing. So, minimum viable products for them to understand if they are able to get customers and if they are able to address the needs of those customers in the market. This product development lab is run by one of our companies, but at the same time, it delivers services to the companies located at the park, mostly for free. So it's kind of one of the perks that you have whenever you join the science park. Our other building, UPTEC Baixa, in the next slide, is located in downtown Porto. It's mostly dedicated to creative and cultural industries. And it's in downtown because it's also in downtown Porto that we have most of the artistic scene in Porto. So the museums, the art galleries, the restaurants, the nightlife, everything that architecture studios, design studios, digital media students like to be surrounded by. So what happens is they really tend to want to be in this center. And of course, University of Porto, it's also very well known because of its School of Architecture. It's called Porto Architecture, per se, because there's a line that's been recognized internationally. And because of that, we won 2 Pritzker Awards, which is the maximum award you can give to an architect. And last but not least, we do have another center, which is UPTEC Mar. And in here, I think the main advantage is we are located very close to the sea in the marina in another city, as I said, not Porto, but Matosinhos. And all the projects that need this direct access to the sea or the connection with our international port for logistics, they tend to select this location here. So this is UPTEC in terms of the structure, but if we move forward to the next slide, what I wanted to tell you was that we exist roughly for 15 years, and the same as a startup, we didn't have these buildings when we started. We had, these containers which were located close to the School of Engineering, and they were there because we had construction works before, and the containers stay there, and they say, what can we do? How can we use them? And I said, let's start an incubator there. So it was like 7 companies at the time in 2007 at UPTEC, located in these shabby facilities. And what we were trying to understand was, is there a model for this? Will this work? Can we raise sufficient funds later on to build the infrastructure that we need to be a little bit more sophisticated? So things don't happen, I would say, immediately. It's kind of it's a journey. It's work to be done. And the fact was, even in terms of the structure that we have right now, UPTEC owns 2 of the buildings, but the other 2 buildings are different models of exploration that we do with different entities. So that's kind of something that I think that you should as well try to understand. What's the model that adapts to your reality and to the amount of funding that you have right now? Because you can start whatever it is, the starting point. You just need to understand the strategy in 5-10 years and how you can scale it. So since 2007, we already supported 700 projects. It's not only startups that we have included in this number. We also have different projects coming to UPTEC because we believe in multidisciplinarity, and we believe that it's crucial for the startups to be in contact with different contexts, even larger companies. And we also graduated around 98 companies. This means the graduated companies are the ones that do the incubation program with us during 3 years. So in terms overall, this means that per year, and taking into account 2022, we support over 200 projects, a very multicultural environment. We have 32 foreign companies and 37 nationalities represented at the park, which is also quite interesting because it allows you to have these different perspectives coming from the different founders of the startups. And it's very good for creativity as well. So as I said, in the next slide, what you will see is the type of companies we have here. So startups in different levels of maturity. We have startups with two founders, just 2 people working there, and just months, they have incorporated in 2 months, 3 months. We have startups with almost 100 people working there with 2 years or 3 years. And we have startups that have like 10 people, but already have like 3 years. So they don't scale at the same rhythm. We have what we call anchor projects. So anchor projects are the projects we invite to stay longer at the park. Normally, an incubator, we need to have the rotation of the projects. It's not real estate. So what happens is when you enter UPTEC, you know that you'll be staying there maximum 3 to 5 years. After that, there's no sense in being in a science park or an incubator because there's no added value in terms of the services we can provide. So we invite them to leave, or either they leave organically because they have grown so fast and so much that we cannot accommodate them anymore in the park. And those anchor projects, we invite them to stay longer because we believe that they are what we call entrepreneurship champions. And this means that they do a lot of mentoring. They interact a lot of our communities. Some of them run as well acceleration programs, or they do a lot of services like prototyping or any other type of service, which we believe is very useful for the other tenants. Innovation centers, they could be R&D centers. We have different R&D centers located at UPTEC. The largest one is Fraunhofer Porto, so this German institution that also has a branch in Portugal, in Porto. And it's also R&D departments of large companies. For instance, if Samsung wants to have an office close to the University of Porto for collaboration projects, or any other international company or national large company, we try to understand if it's a good fit for the ecosystem, and we do welcome them into the park. They could be with us in lab, as I said, we have lab, office, but we also run co-works and virtual incubation, which means that some projects are with us just to be within the community, but physically they are not in UPTEC. We have roughly, I would say at this point, 40 projects that are with virtual incubation with UPTEC. In the next slide, you will see the type of services that we have for the tenants of UPTEC. Not all of them, because most of the times this service are only for the startups, not for the innovation centers. So the connection with University of Porto, of course, that's our main reason. I haven't referred, but UPTEC is independent from the university. We have administrative and legal autonomy from the university, but we are 100% owned by the university, which means that we do have this duty to align our policies with the policies of the university and to do as much connections as possible between our community and the students and researchers at the university. We do mentoring and business development services for the startups. We focus a lot in building strategic partners, networks and corporations. There's a lot of our effort that goes into organizing events and networking opportunities for our startups. And then, of course, our acceleration programs, which we brand globally as knowledge sharing programs. I can explain a little bit of this to you, but before I do this, in the next slide, what you will see has to do with our strategy. So I already said that in the beginning, there were only 7 companies in prefab containers located at UPTEC. At this point, we are at full capacity. This means that our buildings are have a waiting list of around like 6 months to get in. And this is a responsibility, but also an opportunity for UPTEC. We can select projects that we want to let in, which a couple of years, let's say 10 years ago, was not the case, because we needed to be sustainable economically, because we don't receive any funding from the university or from the government directly. We are run like a company. And this means that we needed to fill the spaces. We needed to deliver as many services as possible so that we could have revenue for UPTEC. At this point, we believe that we are able to be picky. You know, we can choose the projects which we believe are going to be the ones that will give more visibility to UPTEC, or the ones that will integrate better into the community. And in doing so, one of the important things that you need to do, and the next slide will tell you that, is how do they get to know UPTEC? How are they able to apply to UPTEC? So there's a lot of an effort that was done in the beginning. First of all, to do a marketing effort for UPTEC, so that at national level it's easier, but at international level it's quite hard. So that everybody that wants to be established in Porto or in Portugal, being Porto one of their choices, knows about UPTEC and knows what UPTEC has to offer. So we have this apply form, in which we ask projects to tell us a little bit more about them and where do they fit in terms of our different types of projects. If they are a large corporate, if they are still an idea, not incorporated, or if they already are a startup, and which area, how do they feel UPTEC would fit into their structure. And this is quite important for you if you think about doing this later, because really there's a lot of effort that goes into marketing. There's a lot of effort that goes into screening the projects in order for you to have the best ones located in your infrastructures. So the next slide, I will tell very briefly. So I'm going to go through these slides a little bit fast, because it's just to explain what goes into each of the different areas in which we provide support. So when we're talking about these links with university, in here it's for the startups, but it's also for the innovation centers, for the large companies. What we do is try to get university inside of the park. And when we're talking about this means researchers and students, but at the same time, provide as many collisions in the sense that interactions as possible between the university and between the companies. And how do we do this? So in the next slide, I provide some examples of the different types of interactions we do with the university. So we cooperate with R&D centers. Basically, this cooperation has to do with going there, speaking to the researchers, understanding what they are doing, and understanding if we have companies in the park that may need their expertise. So kind of the cross-selling. And then we try to understand if we can promote interactions between those companies and R&D centers. We collaborate in PhD programs. We host the PhD in design. So the program itself, it's a joint venture between our School of Fine Arts, another university in Portugal, Aveiro, and UPTEC, and it's located in our facilities, which means that the PhD students will be there interacting with companies and being mentored as well during the development of their projects by the companies. We do a lot of teaching at the university. Normally it's seminars. We go there and we explain what is entrepreneurship, what should you do if you have a research idea, and you need to understand if it has the potential to build a startup or at least to license it. That's the role of the TTO, to license the technology to the market. What should you do if you get into this point in that you need to make a decision as a researcher, that probably you don't want to continue to be a researcher, you want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to incorporate a company. So that's a substantial amount of our time that we are trying to do this, mainly for the University of Porto, but as well in other universities, not only in Portugal, but in other countries in which we do some training. We have this program with our technology transfer office, in which the TTO recognizes or gives University of Porto spin-off brand to some companies, the ones that really license technology, and then we host them at the Science Park. There's no, I would say they pay roughly the same as the others to be there. There's no discount, but there's an increased interaction which we do with the TTO, between UPTEC and the TTO. And then, of course, the access to talent. So I'm not sure if I'm running out of time, because I see that there are some messages for questions. If so, just let me know, because I'm not able to see the hours, since I'm doing this in my mobile phone. So if we move to the other slide, in terms of the support we give of business development, this is mostly for the startups in the early stages, and it's very diversified. But in here, what we try to understand, whenever a company comes into the park, we assign a business developer. The business developer will, jointly with the startup, do kind of a planning, a 3 years plan, and understand what are your needs within the next 3 years you're going to stay with us. Is it money? Do we need to help you in raising VC funding? Is it development, expertise to put your service or your product in the market? Is it network, international connections to enter different markets? So we do this analysis, and then we try to do checkpoints, regular checkpoints with the company to provide the level of support that they need. Then we have the strategic partners network in the next slide. So this has to do with the fact that a lot of companies right now, they understand that we have 200, startups and let's say projects that are in UPTEC, and that's over 2,000 people working there, which means that it becomes interesting for them to deliver services. They also want to be part of this community, of this ecosystem. So what we do is we gather with them and they try to understand what you have to offer to the community, and why should we engage with you in a collaboration? What are you offering for free or at a discount to the companies for the fact that we are promoting you inside the Science Park? So this network, and if we can move to the other slides, we focus a lot in talent, internships, because, startups at a certain point, they will need to grow their teams, and they will need to learn how to recruit and how to retain talent. It's when you're talking about developers, this is highly important, because we have a scarcity of talent in Portugal and in Europe in general, and I would say this is a big problem. And there's a lot of rotation. So startups need to understand increasingly how to build teams from 10 to 100 and from 100 to 200 people. And there's a lot of entities that can support them in this process. We also have a lot of collaborations with the technological and finance services, but mostly, let's say, the large tech firms. In the next slide, you'll see we do have collaborations with Amazon, Google, IBM, Microsoft, so all the big ones that provide, cloud services. And what we ask for them is you need to provide this for free to the startups, at least during the initial stages, because they are not able to pay, and they really need it to develop their services and their products. We do the same with the lawyers and the IP lawyers. So there's a lot of collaboration with these different firms in the next slide, because there's a point in which they will need legal advice to establish agreements, to be able to know how to defend a patent. And it's extremely expensive, and a startup in the early stages doesn't have any money to invest in this. It's not only that they have this, hours that they give as a service for free to our community. It's also because we ask them to come there and to do workshops and training to the startups. So the next slide, it's also a broader one in terms of cooperation networks. This has to do with the different entities around the world with which we have regular links, and with whom we exchange either the fact that they are visiting delegations coming from different countries, or we are sending delegations of startups, or wider networks of science parks. So whatever we believe, it's important for our community. And in the next slide, we'll see also, because I've talked about we are run like a company, and this means there's a concern in how we diversify our revenue sources. So most of the revenue that UPTEC has comes from our incubation services, the service that I just explained that we deliver to the startups. But there's also an increasing part coming from European projects. European projects for us are extremely important because, first of all, they give you a wider network. You engage with different entities around the world, which means that your ability to learn from them increases as well exponentially. It's also a way to get money to support activities. For instance, most of our acceleration programs or mentoring programs are for free to the startups located at the park, but not only to them, some companies as well outside. We welcome them to have this access to knowledge for free, because it's paid by the European projects. So what these projects have in common is they are all, their main focus is entrepreneurship support or innovation in a broader sense, in terms of collaboration between the university and companies. So the next slide, you will see that whenever you have a community, the community doesn't, it's not run organically. So things don't happen if you don't put any effort into some initiatives in order for people to get to know each other. So we do a lot of events and networking, in the sense that we really want the different founders of the startups to communicate between themselves. And this is done mostly, in the next slide, you will see we organize around 300 events per year in UPTEC in the different buildings. And some of them are not organized by UPTEC. They are organized by our companies, but they need to be open to the community. So everybody needs to benefit from those events. It could be an event in the importance of artificial intelligence in running the business for the future. So if a company is an expert in that area, what we'll say is, okay, you can use our facilities, the auditorium, we give you technical support, but you need to open up this workshop for all the companies at UPTEC. So we do a lot of internal events. So Blah Blah Breakfast is an event in which a small group of companies, up to 12, gathers to discuss common challenges they face. Cheers is the event in which we present new companies entering the park to the rest of the companies there. UPTEC Nonstop, it's a yearly event in which everybody presents to the outside world. And then we do the connection between our companies and VCs and large corporations. So the VCs is for them to get funded. The large corporations is for them to get a pilot validation. Who knows, maybe later on they could be acquired by the large company if that's within their strategy. So whenever we do this, it's to provide them more and more opportunities. The acceleration programs, this has to do with the fact that whenever we have applied to UPTEC, we need to kind of structure the support that we give to these niche projects if they are very, very young. So we engage in a lot of acceleration and capacitation, entrepreneurship capacitation programs. Our flagship program in the next slide, it's UPTEC School of Startups. We have 2 editions. We have one edition that's done for entrepreneurs. So you need to have a team, you need to have an idea. You come to this program, and during 4 months, you will be mentored and you'll have access to different workshops. And the main objective is how to validate your business model. How do you understand if it's viable and feasible? And we do a shorter edition of this program for researchers. So students, mostly master and PhD students, it's done within 1 week, so like 35, 40 hours. And it's the basics of lean startup. So if they have an idea, they understand how to later on apply that idea. We also engage a lot with different entities, international entities, national entities. In the next slide, you'll see like different programs we organize per year. Roughly, it's kind of 7, 8 acceleration programs. So normally, we have around 200 to 300 entrepreneurs participating in these programs. And it's a way in which we can expose more the brand of UPTEC. And also we can allow opportunities for these projects, most of them Portuguese, to be exposed to international competitions, startup competitions like Climate Launchpad or European Space Agency Incubation Program. If we move forward, I can also, there's specific programs that we do for corporations. This is tailor-made. So whenever, for instance, you have a large company that says we want to do an open innovation program to identify ideas within our company. So we have like 50,000 employees, and now we want them to be able to suggest their ideas for innovation. We try to help this company to structure the program. Or for instance, we do what we call immersive programs in UPTEC. We receive delegations from other countries. Normally in this case, they are CEOs from different companies, in which they have this crash course on how to do business with startups, which is a different reality of doing business with other large corporations. Moving forward to one thing that's extremely important for TTOs, for science parks, for all these support structures, which is your accountability. How do you measure the impact of what you do? One thing is to say, okay, we are economically viable because although being a non-profit, we do generate, profits every year, which we apply into the system. The other thing is, but is it worth it, all of this? Do you have an impact in society? So every 2 years, we do a study, an economic impact study, in which we try to understand for a specific year, for a group of companies, normally it's 120 companies that enter this study, that are the sample of the study. What's the impact they have on GDP? How much impact do they have in terms of jobs that they are generating? Are they exporting a lot? And what's their turnover? So turnover is kind of the lowest number because some of these entities don't have sales. They are still developing products and services on the base of investment, VC investment. And the fact is, every 2 years, we compare the results of 2021, for instance, with 2019. And we see that for the same number of companies, it's not the same companies, but the same number, roughly 120 companies, this is increasing a lot. For instance, the results of 2019, the impact of jobs was 6,000 jobs. Now it's 8,600 jobs. And this is also a measure of sophistication. The companies are growing faster. The companies are able to generate more jobs. And this is something that you can show to policymakers and even for the university, saying, you see that the amount of money initially put into building the science park has been paid full and more than that in terms of the results that we generate, in terms of the value and the money that we generate into the economy. And the next one, we also measure our media impact. So it's very important, as I said, to be known and to be well known. So we do a lot of support to our startups so that they can advertise their success, so that they can be part of the media. And this has a price that if they would pay would be superior to 1 million, but it's part of our effort in the communication and marketing team. And of course, increasingly the social and environmental impact, because it's, as I said, we have this purpose. In the next slide, please. We have this purpose of better business for a better world. So we need to align ourselves with the ODS, and we need the Sustainable Development Goals, and we need to understand if we can engage as much as possible with different entities to do this impact business. So over the years, in the next slide, you will see that UPTEC has won some awards at European level, but also with some corporations that we worked a lot in the past, and recently by the Portuguese government, being recognized as a public utility in the sense of we benefit society. So it's kind of a national recognition, which is hard to get. And our future, which is what we want to be in the next 5-10 years, we know that we need to keep updating in terms of how we do this support to business, because business are different than they were 10 years ago. The reality of work is changing a lot. We talk about artificial intelligence, how it can replace jobs or not. We talked about the reality of remote working, that right now it's not the same in terms of office space as it was before COVID. And we talked about the competitiveness increasing and new markets emerging that need to be addressed by these companies. So the same way, we want to be able to adapt and to grow to a new reality. And this means to be able to learn a lot with different examples around the world and to adapt ourselves to an ever constant changing reality in terms of doing business. So just to end, and this I'm not able to show you because I think it's a PDF. I had a short movie, but I can later share the link with you so that you can see it, in which you would see the buildings and reality of UPTEC. So just for you to have this ability to be more in touch with what we do. But unfortunately, due to these technical issues, I'm not able to show you. So I'll share the link and then you can see it later if you want to. So I think I'm within time, more or less. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share my experience. And of course, I'm here to answer all of your questions. I will need some of your support because I'm not able to see them here in the mobile phone.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was really, really inspiring. All the beautiful images accompanying everything that you were sharing about UPTEC and Porto and Portugal really took us on a trip there. Before we get into the Q&A, I just wanted to acknowledge the presence of some colleagues from across Africa. I see we have Angela from Tanzania, Malvika from Kenya, and someone representing Ubulu Africa from Nigeria. Also, thank you, Itumeleng from UNISA, Lita and Mashuru from Stellenbosch University, and Tombi from University of Technology in Durban. So thank you all. And for those who have not yet introduced themselves in the chat, you're also very much appreciated for staying with us. So with the questions, we have some questions in the chat that I'm going to read out for Maria to answer. And please, if you do have more, keep them coming. So someone is asking if you charge for your services. Is there a cost for your services? And if so, how do you do that?
Yeah, there is a cost. So whenever you apply for UPTEC, we need to understand a little bit how do you fit into the ecosystem. And this means, what are you applying for? Is it physical space, office lab? Is it co-work or virtual incubation? And what's the level of maturity of your project? Are you a large corporation or are you a startup? And according to this analysis, there's a fee which you pay which is all inclusive of the other services that whenever you enter the park. So that fee includes the modality of incubation. For instance, if it's office, it's associated to square meters of space. But if it's co-work, it's a fixed fee. And if it's virtual, it's a fixed fee. And within this monthly fee that you pay to UPTEC, which represents not only the facilities, the incubation, but the services associated and the community, we provide you the service that I just discussed before. Was this clear? Okay.
I hope that answers the question. The next question is asking for clarity around how the science park works with the TTO. Where is the TTO located, and how do both entities engage or function together without duplicating each other's services?
So that's a very good question because it's tricky. I used to work at the TTO. I was the director of the TTO before being the business director of the science park. And one of the things that we decided during this transition was that the TTO was going to be located in the science park as well. This means that initially it was in the administrative building of the university, so the rectorate. And right now it's in the ecosystem, which for them means that they are closer to founders, to startups, and even to some researchers. The fact that they are located at UPTEC means that we also do regular meetings to understand how we can collaborate. How do we separate? In terms of the intellectual property, it's always the mission of the TTO. We don't deal with intellectual property at the science park. Whenever there's a question or doubt of a researcher student that's incorporating a company, we put them in contact with the TTO. Whenever we welcome a delegation, let's say an international company goes to the park and wants to know about innovation projects, we invite the TTO to present, and we invite the TTO to bring research groups. We bring mostly companies. So that's how we divide things, but communication is essential here because sometimes they do entrepreneurship programs and we do entrepreneurship programs. There is always some sort of duplication. And what we try to do, because resources are scarce, is to articulate in as much as possible so we prevent this. And so they work more in the early stages. They have a proof of concept for technologies. We work in the later stages in which already the company is incorporated and wants to come to UPTEC.
We have a hand up. I'll take a live question from Jonas. Jonas, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Jonas, are you there? Okay, while Jonas, oh, he's on it. Yes, Jonas?
I read that. It seems he cannot unmute.
Okay. Yeah, but he looks unmuted on my side. Well, you can type your question in the chat and we'll get to it. So the next question is, how long did it take from UPTEC inception to date, and how long did it take to hit major milestones within that timeline?
Mm-hmm. So we just celebrated this year the 15th anniversary of UPTEC, so teenagers right now. And that's our, let's say, the track record of activity. But the important milestones, the first one was we applied for some national government projects to build the infrastructure. So our buildings, they cost millions in terms of building them up, at least two of them. Overall, it was, I think, 25 million euros. So that UPTEC didn't have the funds to do this. UPTEC was only like 2-3 people working at the time there. And this was a major milestone to be able to win the competition for having the support of the government to build the science park, the two main buildings. The second milestone was that we decided to expand our business model and not only have our own facilities, but to enter into agreement with different entities to have facilities. For instance, we have a building which is owned by the University of Porto, and we pay It's like a licensing deal. We pay a percentage of our invoicing, of our revenues to the university, and we use the space. And we have other agreements with other entities in which, for instance, municipalities, they really want to attract projects to their location. And they say, I don't care, I have the building for you because it's part of the public buildings of the municipality. But I want you to run this in order to bring projects that will generate jobs. And this way we run all the activities, but the building is not ours and we don't pay for it. So those were the milestones. But then there was other milestones that had to do with reaching 100 startups at the park, whenever there's 100, and we were like, amazing. Okay. The other milestone was being at full capacity. So we have 99% occupation rate, which means that there's always some rotation and we need to refurbish the space during that. So that's an important milestone. But I think one of the most important milestones is also when we break even in terms of being able to have revenues sufficient to grow the team to pay, because we pay the university, to grow the team to pay the university and all of that. And that was only possible in 2019. So 10 years, roughly 10, 11 years of activity of UPTEC.
Right. And the question that Jonas had for us, he's dropped it in the chat. He's asking, he's an investor that runs accelerator programs in different African universities. How can we collaborate and what does the process look like?
Okay, I think that there's an alignment between what we do. It is, in terms of how can we collaborate, we need to first understand expectations. So what type of programs are you building for those universities and what type of programs do we have? We do a lot of tailor-made programs as well to fit the reality and the context of different institutions. We, in the past, ran as well TTO programs, how to establish a technology transfer office. What are the do's and the don'ts that you should be careful? And the same with the science parks. For acceleration per se, what we understand is what's the level of technical skills? Are you targeting for students or more mature, startups that are not coming from the universities? Is it vertical in terms of focus in one area, or is it more, multidisciplinary? So all of those things, how long will it take? Is it a boot camp? Is it going to be longer? So we discuss all of those things in order to understand if there's a fit. And of course, we are running programs, for instance, for the European Institute of Technology and in the agro-food sector for female. So we really want to increase the number of female entrepreneurs, which is still an issue. So most of our funders are males. And when we are talking about technology and, all that has to do with computer science, it's mostly males. And we need to change this. So we have those programs that it's more specific and we do directly with our partners. So Jonas, be glad to you can share my contacts, Neveline, and I'm glad to discuss this further with you.
Awesome, thank you. There's another question asking how UPTEC partners and collaborates with the local government or municipality of Porto and the R&D that you deliver for industry chambers and business associations in the region. So a little bit broader sense, how do you collaborate with the community?
We don't do R&D. We do mostly innovation programs, but no research per se. But for instance, with the municipalities, we have acceleration programs. We run with the municipality of Matosinhos, the other city where we have one of the facilities of UPTEC, a program specifically dedicated to the blue economy, because it's located in the sea. It's an important sector for them. And the objective of that program is to attract business to be located at that city. So that's one way we collaborate with municipalities. Another way is doing this matchmaking between startups and large corporations. With chambers of commerce, we welcome delegations and we do events to promote doing business in Portugal or doing business in Porto. We have soft landing programs in place in which we try to welcome startups. It's not individual cases. Normally, this is organized between, chambers of commerce or the other entities that bring delegations of startups to a specific country because those startups want to start doing business there. It's not because it's Portugal specifically, but Portugal is also an entry door to Europe. And sometimes it's easier to enter to Portugal, for instance, because of language in some countries, or because of some cultural links, and then to approach Europe from Portugal. So that's the examples of programs that we develop with different municipalities, chambers of commerce, all over.
We have another question. How does UPTEC measure impact beyond just numbers? And what type of industries does the product development lab cater to? Does it include health sciences?
So product development lab is mostly what we have is equipment for prototyping, for fast prototyping. This could be for digital, but it's digital health. I would say this could be for health, but we are talking most in terms of medical devices or digital health. It could be for engineering. What we do there is 3D prototyping or some sort of mock-up in which you are able to better show your product. And this is important because either for UX experience, so user, adaptation to your product, so they can have some sort of way of interacting with the product and with the public, but it's not technical. It's more design engineering.
There was a hand up. I can't see it anymore. I don't know if there's any other questions. Maria has to drop off in 3 minutes. Yes, please unmute yourself. I don't think I can see your name clearly. Unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Hi, Maria. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Perfectly.
Okay, this is Tembela Healy. I would like to ask a question. We always talk about startups, and I think in South Africa we have this problem, especially with universities, where we don't talk about what is the process to establish the startups. We just talk about startups that are already there. So do you guys have a process? And in that process, how do you negotiate maybe with the TTO in terms of who gets what when has to come up? Because sometimes, or most of the time, the professors are not those that can run the startups. You have probably a body of knowledge in the business school of Porto. So how do you make that? And how do you get, because I think it could even answer the question about that you ask about women founders. So how do you encourage founders? How does the university encourage that there's a good share and that people are encouraged to do that before we even have the startups?
Yeah. So, excellent, because that's really an issue. We are having, sometimes it has to do with the market in terms of you don't have employment opportunities. And then the number of students or the number of PhD students that want to build a startup increases because there's no other exit and they cannot stay at university because there's no place for them at university. But going back a little bit, there's programs in place at University of Porto that like our School of Startups for Researchers. And what we do is, come on, let's try to understand a little bit what's the idea behind. Would you be willing or able to run this as a startup? Can we support you in doing that? And then there's the issue of intellectual property. Not all of our startups are having intellectual property coming from the University of Porto because we are agnostic. We also welcome startups from other areas. But whenever there's intellectual property involved in it, there's a licensing deal that needs to be done with the University of Porto. And it's the TTO job to manage that deal. That being said, we are very flexible when it comes to startups because it's very, very difficult if you have a researcher or a student of that researcher that wants to incorporate a company. The university, if it blocks the process, they will do it anyway. They just will not communicate to the university. So they will do it, as we call it, undercover. And the fact, in order to prevent this, what the university did was kind of facilitating a lot the deals with researchers and startups. And in a way in which the university does not try to be greedy in terms of the percentage it imposes. So one of the things, you need to have a clear intellectual property policy, and you need to have a way for startups to license technology very fast and very cheap to the university in order for this to work. The other thing is the researcher normally is a lousy CEO in the sense that he works for the university. He still wants to be the researcher, he's the main PI, but then sometimes he's not able to give up his role in the startup. So we match with, there's a specific program run by the university, which is called Business Ignition Program, in which we try to match, business profiles like MBAs or people coming from business with the researchers, with the team of researchers. So those can be the CEOs and the researcher can be the chief technical officer, but not be involved in the day-to-day management of the startup, because that's something that normally kills the business.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, Maria has to drop off. But thank you so much, Maria, for taking time, for sharing your insights so generously. And thank you for everyone for your engagement and for your very insightful questions that have really contributed to the conversation. We will still be here even as Maria drops off. So please keep the questions coming. We would channel them to Maria and follow up with you on that. Also, just to remind everyone that we do have a session during the upcoming Science Forum happening at the ICC in CSIR in Pretoria on the 5th of December. So you're welcome to join us, and so we can engage more. There's a sign or someone has put up the poster, the save the date poster, so you can scan the QR code or follow the link tree and RSVP. It will be a very interesting conversation, very inspiring speakers, and a chance to further engage, as Maria has highlighted, the importance of events and networking to foster innovation and creativity. So this is one more opportunity for you to join us. I don't know if there's anything. Okay, we will also be having a working, and that was communicated in the chat. We'll also be having a working visit to Porto for learning purposes, a learning expedition where hopefully we'll be able to visit and see UPTEC live. So if you are interested, this will be happening in May 2024. You can contact us. There's an email address in the chat. You can reach us, and also just check out our link tree. There are more events coming up in the next few weeks before we close off the year. And we will keep you posted as we plan this trip in May 2024. While we are here, there is a video that we would like to also share with you before we sign off. But keep your questions coming in the chat, and we will make a note of them to share with Maria. There's a video that we play now.
If I'm an entrepreneur and I really want you to notice me, I'll make sure that I have a really big, important problem to solve, the big solution. I'm well advised, I'm persistent, and professional enough to ensure that my solution can scale. Our relationship with Absa is built on digital ecosystem partnership across the continent of Africa. Through this relationship, we're able to leverage our decade-long experience on the continent to identify unique digital solutions to the business of Absa across 12 markets on the continent. The best way to build partnership with a large corporate is remember that corporates have their own mandates and objectives. Firstly, so understand how you fit in, whether or not your solution actually solves a particular problem, and whether or not you have the ability to implement it at scale. Partnering with Absa offers a number of opportunities. Firstly, it's access to markets, where Absa is already active in 12 countries across the continent. Secondly, it's access to data, And lastly, it's an opportunity to potentially pilot your solution with ABSA in a new market as you build your solution.
For the first time in South Africa, a live performance mid-flight at 30,000 feet. To kick off this groundbreaking innovation is 27-year-old Divine Mahara. This is also the former Zimbabwe's Got Talent winner's first ride on a plane ever.
Life is a journey. We are all traveling. Kure kwanda kabai koi, here I have been traveling. Life is a journey. We are still traveling. Kure kwandi toyendai koi, we are all still traveling. Kanango mayorira natso terera iwe voda izira ngome natso pembera upenye udukuduku mwanawe break a leg my friend kanango mayorira natso terera kanango mayorira natso terera iwe voda izira ngome natso pembera upenye udukuduku mwanawe break a leg, my friend. Kanango mayorira nazo terera. Life is a journey. Yeah, we are all traveling. Kure kwanda kabai koi. Here I have been traveling. Oh, life is a journey. We are still traveling. And I go, yeah, we are all still traveling. Kanango mayorira natso terera iwe voda izira ngome natso pembera iwe upenye udokuduku mwanawe break a leg my friend kanango mayorira natso terera iwe kanango mayorira natso terera iwe voda izira ngome natso pembera upenye udokuduku mwanawe break a leg my friend kanango mayorira natso terera iwe traveling I have been traveling we're still all traveling yes I have been traveling